in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Welcome to the Author Your Brand Show, guys. I'm so excited to bring on not just one guest, but my chief editor as well, because we're going to be talking about an upcoming book that is probably one of the most fascinating stories I've ever had the honor of being involved with. So I'm going to bring on first my chief editor, Jen Malone. Jen, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
Good. Okay. So I'm going to introduce Mohan. If you want to add anything to if you want to add anything to his credentials, you go ahead and chime in here. Our guest today is a gentleman who has 15 patents. And one of those patents is a little thing you might have heard of. It's called GPS. And he is he's worked for every government agency I can imagine, NASA, JPL, DOD, a bunch of other ones that I can't mention. He's a rocket scientist, guys. Okay, he's the smartest man in the world. He invented GPS. And we're here to talk today about something he was involved with. It's a little $5 billion company that also started up back in the late 90s called Stamps.com. And so we're going to take a very deep dive into the history and challenges and successes he had with this amazing startup. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Mohan Ananda. How are you doing today, Mohan?
Thanks, Doug. That was a little bit, I appreciate your kind words, but I think I'm humbled by those statements. Thanks.
Well, I know your resume is a lot longer than that, and we could go through all the things you've done, from owning a law firm and other startups and other billion-dollar ventures you've been involved with. But today we're going to focus on Stamps.com, and maybe we'll come back another time and talk about some of your other ventures as well. So I've read the excerpt from this book that we're publishing with you, but I'd like to hear from you from the horse's mouth exactly how it got started and what was your thinking when you first came up with that.
This is about the book or the...
This is about Stamps.com, right? Okay. Your technology, yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Sure.
Stamps.com happened because of the technology changes in the internet. This is sometimes in early 90s, around 92, actually, I came up with this idea of using internet to enhance e-commerce. That's at the time, internet was not really that.
Yeah, in 92, I mean, I first saw the internet like 96, 98. In 92, it wasn't public. It was just universities were using it and, government, right?
But I knew, somehow or other I felt that's going to be the future. So generally during that time, if you go back to especially Microsoft will sell software and you can buy the software and put it in your computer, download it, and then you use it as as you need. I thought that maybe that's an interesting, obviously, the concept, but I thought maybe the future will be, instead of selling the software, what you want to do is to lease the software, meaning the current cloud system concepts. That means you keep the software, then you continue to upgrade and change, introduce new features, but the users can use it without downloading, using the internet as the medium.
Mohan, that was like 30 years ahead of its time.
Correct. It's 92.
90 years already thinking about software as a service, cloud-based software, as opposed to not even CDs. What was it? I know CDs are big cassette tapes. So you were already thinking that back in the 90s. It's amazing.
Exactly. That's when I thought this concept, even though the bandwidth was very, very low, you have to get the bit by bit, but I knew this is going to grow because somehow or other it has to happen. So I came up with this new technology platform and applied for a patent in 92. So that's in fact, if you look at any e-commerce patent today, there are thousands of them, many, many thousands. They all refer to my original patent because there is that's the root. So that I'm really proud of that a kind of vision, or at least I saw the trend, and I, put this technology together.
And
That is the cause of stamps.com. And I
it,
already got the patent in 1996. So it's
okay.
92 applied. It took 4 years because software patents are always difficult to get. Then I got 4 patents in that same category or similar.
Okay.
I mean, that's the start of it.
Could you describe the patent in layman's terms?
Okay, the technology is basically what it is you, meaning the so-called provider, is providing to a user an existing software online rather than you have it with you, because if you have it with you, if there is any change or improvement, you may not be able to do it. That means you have to download again the new ones. Here the idea is I have it, meaning the provider, and I continue to upgrade it, and you can use it. The same concept is when you, for example, I'm just getting back to the stamps concept. You want to print a stamp. Printing stamps is really printing money. So you want to connect them and make sure that people don't print stamps without your knowledge. So this is a software is, printing is a function of a software. So it's basically you're kind of a connected to the resource, or so you can't do anything without my knowledge, or so that you can't print stamps and say, okay, I'll have more money than, So that was the thought process, and that became the root technology into the stamps technology.
So basically, not only did you invent GPS with your team at NASA, you also invented cloud computing, is what you're telling me.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I think that's very, very generous. No.
It's kind of true based on what you're telling me. In 92, 96, nobody's doing cloud computing. Most people didn't know about the internet, and you're already 30 years ahead. So I know you're being modest here, but come on, that's...
Now, I would say the idea here is really that it's done remotely. That is like Google or Microsoft or whoever now do things, are what I kind of thought about it in a very limited way, but that has a tremendous ramification throughout the technology, digital technology area, and especially in the e-commerce. Now everybody does e-commerce because of this capability of interfacing through digitally. So
So you got this patent, you got approved by 96 or so.
Yeah.
And at what point would you design it for the stamps, or just a general idea?
Right. This is a very generic technology. It has an application for everywhere when somebody is marketing software. That is and in fact, I went and talked to Microsoft. In fact, I met with I forgot his name, but fairly top guy. He reports to Bill Gates. This happened in Las Vegas. They had every year they have this software conference. So I was there.
CES.
I think it's there's a regular software conference, and I just happened to be one of the visitors. So I met with him because I was trying to market my technology to license to somebody, especially to license to Microsoft. I thought it'll be interesting, but he looked at it. He heard me. I mean, unfortunately, he said, "I mean, I understand your patent and all, but we can do it without you." So that's the response I got. I was a little bit happy about it.
They looked at your patent and said, "Yeah, we can just circumvent you anytime we want because we're Microsoft, right?"
That's exactly. I mean, he didn't say
So
anything
nice.
to circumvent, but that's the message I got. So I knew that it is tough. Many companies. This is true. In fact, even though patent is a good protection, but people do get around it, and especially the companies which have billions of dollars to invest, they can do anything. So I learned that lesson in that discussion. I was honestly thinking, that would be great for Microsoft because, of course, they have tremendous technology people, but I wanted to be part of their team, but I was not well received. That was the really the shock that I recognized the
Yeah.
companies
Okay. So
went.
you developed cloud computing, and Microsoft didn't bite because they just do it on their own. I can understand that, even though it's kind of funny. Um, and then at what point did you say, "Hey, how about helping out the U.S. government with stamps"? When did that come to
That
be?
really happened not directly by me. It's actually my son, who he was at the time a student at UC San Diego in the medical school. He's a smart guy. Obviously, he's a neurosurgeon now, practicing with in fact, he's one of the really world famous neurosurgeons in a specific area called deep brain stimulation. So, I mean, he's a great guy. But then this is in 96. 96, he was a student at UC San Diego Medical School. And his friend, his classmate, whom I know, his name is Ari Engelberg. He was doing his JD MBA at UCLA. So they meet periodically because they went to high school together. So they meet periodically, to have lunch and all. And one day they were having lunch, and in their conversation, Ari was telling, they are doing a project at UCLA with something to do with, developing a new device. Like, if you know the Pitney Bowes have a printing stamp franking machine that's actually commonly used by almost all industry in printing stamps. Is the Pitney Bowes was the leader. It's been like 100-year-old technology. I mean, it's a long, been there, and same thing they do, and they lease the machine to people, and they make a good income. But now these people were improving that and come up with another device to do something similar to that. Then Ajay told Ari, I think you guys are in the wrong path. Maybe you should talk to my dad, because he has this new patent with regard to software. So you don't need any device, just any computer, anybody can probably print. So he was the brainchild rather than me. I mean, I want to give you this credit to him. But he does not know how to do or anything, but he just kind of told Ari. So he told Ari, come and meet with my dad. He knows. Ari has been to our home because they went to high school together many years. So I know. So he came that evening. So I kind of told him, the actual technology, and explained it to him and said, okay, they were thinking about a dongle, some device, just like a Pitney Bowes, but in a smaller way. I said, you don't need any of those things. The only requirement is you need to have a secure internet access, and that's all it needs. And he was kind of surprised, and he said, that's very interesting. Then I told him, if you are ready, I think we can actually have a startup. That's the evening. In fact, we even came up with the company name. The company name at the time was Stamp Master. We didn't think about stamps, but Stamp Master, that was the name. And then his two friends who was doing his project at UCLA, they also joined, obviously, and they were still doing their MBA. But then I put I'll come to how it all happened. That's the evening the company was formed in, as a matter of fact, in this room where I am sitting right now.
Oh, that's so cool. Hey, I got a quick question about this software. I'm thinking about current events, right?
Yeah.
We've had, pipelines hacked. We've had, food distribution systems hacked in the United States. In the 90s, things are much more permeable, right? It's much easier to hack things than it is now. How come those people today aren't using the same technology that it's impenetrable?
Okay, I tell you, it is not because there is no lack of technology. I come from, my background, as you said, is from really DOD, Department of Defense. NASA is a scientific, but they do things, but they're not really concerned about the security as much. I mean, they do of course, when we launch satellites to various interplanetary systems, it is true it is to be secure. However, the Department of Defense, where I worked with, and GPS, for example, it has to be 100% secure.
Okay.
So there is nothing, because it's our defense. I mean, there is
Yeah. So they have higher levels of encryption at the government level than private.
Many, I can't discuss all the details, but it is available. It's not today. I'm talking about it's 90s or late 80s. I mean, technology is available to secure foolproof, 100% proof. No, nothing can penetrate. It's available. So that's the
Is it available for only government contracts?
I mean, non-private companies also, because technology is known. It's not
okay.
Not, I mean, something, but the way you applications is classified, or it could be secure.
Sure.
But technology, the encryption technology, the way you do, for example, in a public information, I'll tell you how it could be easily done. Basically, what it is, you first of all do not store anything in clear form. It's very simple. In a clear meaning, so the way you should do, everything should be encrypted. Meaning, then but in addition to that, any identification with the individuals or people, that should be separated. So you can only bring them together when something is being used. So I mean, these are not anything new. People know all these things, but you have to implement it. In addition to that, there should be several layers of security checks when somebody comes and uses it. Somebody like I am a user and I log in, I put password, but there are certain things to make sure my access is the right access. And if you put many of these things in place in the right form, it can be all done with the existing technology. It's not a rocket science, anything to invent again. But it's
so says the rocket scientist. Yes, got that. Thank you. So okay, so it's available for private sector, but they don't do it, or it's just too expensive, or what?
Because many of the systems are old legacy systems, meaning very pre-technology type of system. They patch it up because it's a in order to replace and bring it to the current state of the art, it takes capital, and people are very reluctant to make that kind of investment.
Well,
now they have to do, because
I think there's a business opportunity now with these companies getting hacked. We say, hey man, I've got this guy from DoD that we got 100% encrypted. It'd be great. So back to stamps.com, you had Stamp Master.
Yes.
But you went and found the domain stamps.com. What was that being used for?
The stamps.com was already privately, somebody had that name. So we didn't buy that name until two years or a year and a half after, because we have to pay a lot of money to buy the stamps.com.
Oh, yeah?
Name, just the name. But
how much was it, may I ask?
I remember? Think about $1 million or something like that. First of all, this is the company was started in this room with no money.
Yeah, right.
Then okay, you have to make a commitment. As I have discussed previously, any startup. I mean, because I'm a startup advisor as a lawyer to many companies, and I always tell them there are 3 ingredients to a startup. One is the team, the right people. I'll get to that. That's very, very important. In fact, that is number 1. Number 2, you need to have a product or a service. The right product, right service. Even if you have the right team, even if you don't have the right product, you can come up with the right product. But the product, and especially for us, we have a reasonably initial team. I mean, we just put together. Then we have the product, which means we want to have this ability to print stamps by anybody at any time, so that they can use it, but it's secured in a secured way. Okay, that's the product. The third element, obviously, is the capital, money. So we didn't have, but then I said, okay, I'm going to put something, because this is somebody needs to do it. You won't get any investment until you have something really to show. So I made up, that evening I said, okay, I'm going to put myself about $500,000, but not anything more. But that's a risk. Risk meaning if nothing happens, I lose that money. But I need that to really do the right thing. And those are the three things I did that evening in this room.
Okay, I want to talk to you about some mindset questions here on this.
Okay.
So you've got this cloud-based technology.
Yes.
Your friend and your son say, "Hey, what about printing stamps on it?" And my first reaction is, "Oh," and based on what I know from your book, the U.S. Postal Service hasn't had a patent since 1920 with Pitney Bowes. Nothing since 20 to 90s till you got involved. They don't do technology. They just do the same thing over and over again. Trucks and stamps and all that stuff.
Yes.
So my question for you is, you're putting in $500,000 into something that requires a bureaucracy to go, yeah, we're on board. But you haven't even had a meting yet, and you're putting this money in. Tell me about your mindset on this. What, you're confident? Are you a gambler or what?
No. That's exactly what you just said is exactly what my wife told me. This is part of almost like a craziness.
Well, we don't want to mention that. We want to give away all the things in the book, but from what I understand, she wasn't privy to some of the money being invested here at the first part, right?
That is correct. However, I felt that there is an opportunity here we should explore. It's not just an opportunity to, actually, obviously to make money in the sense in any business, sustainability is very important to make money. However, this is something really we are doing a service to the society. Instead of going to post office and buying stamps and then sticking it, you can just print whenever you want to do, and you can use it. And the business, it's really, so there is a advancement concept, and I somehow or other felt the right technology people, even if the USPS has not done very much, they probably will adopt. That's just a gut feeling. It's not a gambling because of its very penetrating technology possibility. So
Okay.
it's a gut feeling. It is not a gambling, but I felt, and the result speaks for itself. It has happened, but it's an uphill battle. Tremendous.
Yeah, at the time, nothing had happened. This is all still up here and here. So you're not a gambler. I'll accept that. And there's an element of obviously service.
As a matter of fact, I want to interject. I have in my law practice, I have represented FDIC on a bank check kiting case, which I think I did describe in the book. But anyway, this is a mafia group in Las Vegas. There was a bank called Mineral Bank.
One of your clients?
And that's not my client. But FDIC took over the bank, and FDIC hired us to go after these people. And so I used to go to Las Vegas almost 2-3 months, practically every other day, to take depositions and all kind of reasons. But when I go, I stay obviously in one of the big hotels. I don't even put a quarter in any of those slot machines because I am not a gambler, because I know statistically gambling is no return.
Yeah,
Zero.
unless you're the house, right? So, all right. So you've been exposed to lots of gamblers, but you're not one. I get that. I appreciate that. A lot of people who aren't entrepreneurs look at us and look at people as risk takers, but there's a level of managing that risk or mitigating that risk. So when you had the idea, it's like, hey, I really like this concept. I think, was there a fallback or a second choice? If the U.S. government wouldn't go for it, was there another person or entity you were thinking of that could use it?
No, this is a binary system. If USPS says no, you're done with it. That project. But of course, I even though I put $500,000, does not mean I'm going to spend the first day. This is a plan. You will know how this is going to be. In fact, I put that. Okay, next step is putting the team together. I got a lot of others involved, and most of them meaning practically everybody here in US, I said no compensation, no salary except stock options. So you're betting on just like I am betting on, but you don't need to put any money, but you have to put time. Your sweat equity means you will get. And I was, to be honest with you, I was extremely generous. Everybody, in fact, as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
I would say several hundred people became multimillionaires because of
Wow.
it's a very, very nice thing, but because they also took risk. Many people,
But it's not just the top 10 or 20 people. You said several hundred people became millionaires from this.
exactly.
That is generous. Wow.
It
Very
is-
impressive.
it is. I mean, top 10 made quite a bit, but
Yeah.
a number of people, because
Yeah.
everybody who joins gets options.
Mhm. Nice.
Significant option. And if you, of course, if you don't keep the stock for a longer time, you probably would have. But many, because it's some form of a retirement benefit. Or as a matter of fact, there are 4 or 5 of my colleagues at the time. They have retired much early. I mean, early meaning in their late 30s or early 40s, retired for life. I mean, that happens in many tech companies, but I'm privileged to say that we have accomplished that as well. That means they just enjoy they travel around the world, take the children, traveling with them. I mean, it's an amazing thing to watch. That did happen, but this is, of course, much later. I mean, later meaning maybe in 10, 15 years after everything really became much better. But that time we provided these options, and that was the compensation. However, we had to bring, I mean, of course, I had to get somebody to develop the platform. So I brought about 6 or 7 people from India whom I have contact and relationship, instead of asking them to do work from there. I mean, that could be done, but I thought it is better if they come here, because we can work. I mean, of course, in the pandemic period, everybody worked remotely. Those days, remote working was not that easy because there is not that much communications and things like that here. So we brought them, and they have to be paid. They were paid like regular employees, and you have to provide them accommodation. They have to. I mean, there is expenses associated with it, but that helped, because if I have to hire people from here, the compensation has to be significantly higher. These
Well,
are
especially, you're out in Silicon Valley. It's double, right? It's going to be triple.
So I brought the very young, very smart, very creative, very innovative people. So I brought them here, and they kind of. But this is all being done. But the next real important step is to. I mean, we had a working kind of I wouldn't call it. We calling the things called minimum viable product, MVP. Right. But I don't think it was any minimum viable. Some product we had. we wanted to go and see whether we can raise money. Now the most important.
Yeah. Because you can't do a whole lot with $500,000 in this playing field, what you're talking about. So we'll get to the money thing in a second. I want to think about one more thing here. So you've got this idea, you've put in some personal money, and you know that to do it right, to hire these people and to go to the next level, you got to have money there. And based on what we've read in the book so far, you're looking for $6 million just to get really super started.
That is correct.
Okay.
My budget. See, we always do. I mean, I would recommend any startup companies. First of all, you have to develop a deck, a pitch deck, a presentation. And in the pitch deck, you have to give all the technology, what you do, what the potential customers are, what the possibility of penetrating, and how do you get all those things. So there's a typical template, and you just have to do that. In addition, you have to do a financial forecast. What is the obviously the forecast? There are 2 elements. What are the revenue stream? How can you bring revenue, and what the model is? Then you also have to have the expenses. I mean, of course, there are mostly fixed expense. There's something you can't avoid. There is a, and in addition to that, the expenses associated with the acquiring customers, revenue. So there is a proportionate. So you need to have that uh, well put together so that somebody who is going to make the investment, he will have to appreciate, okay, this looks good, and what would be your marginal profit or the EBITDA or the bottom line after tax, and all the numbers have to be pulled together. Mostly it is a forecast. It's not, nothing guaranteed, but you have to do it in such a way that the potential investor, and these investors, especially the venture firms, they're extremely smart. They know how to deep dive and really,
Yes. And this is what I want to ask you, this very important question. So we know you need to go raise money. You're not going to put any more of your own in there. And you don't have government approval yet.
I didn't have more money to put in. So
Okay. No way to put it. So you're putting a sizable part of your own assets in there. But going to these really smart guys in the VC world saying, hey, I've got this great technology. I've got one potential customer for it, and it's the government. They haven't proved anything in 100 years, but I think I can do it. How in the heck do they hold and cough up $6 million? What's going on here?
That's a very excellent question. What happened to us, as a matter of fact, I went to the famous venture alley called the Sand Hill Road in Mountain View, Palo Alto area. It's a even now they have almost all big venture firms, and you name it, I've seen them. So we used to go and present it to them every day almost for a month. That 20 to 30 venture firms, the top venture firms, they were very nice to us, especially me. They were so kind. They listened to us. They liked the story. They are very, very supportive. But there's always a but. They said, you guys have a great product. I think it's fantastic. It will revolutionize. It's great. But there is a major problem. Just like you said, there is this bureaucracy, USPS sitting there, and it's a binary. If they don't approve, you're out of the picture. And there is no history of them approving for a long time. Whereas if you come up with a new drug, even though it's, in order to get the drug approved, it will take an enormous amount of money. The trials it is very difficult. And FDA is another government agency, but they approve periodically drugs. So we can take the risk. But in this case, USPS unfortunately has not done anything, so we can't take that risk. But if you can go and get them telling yes, then we will consider. So this is consistent, the same response from all the big firms. I mean, we are talking about firms like Sequoia or, Kleiner Perkins. I mean, the big firms with billions of dollars, and we were asking for $6 million. They could have done it. They were not that eager to do. This was the kind of a learning point. I mean, I knew this, but I wanted to go through that. But one good thing came out of it. They all knew me. They found out, yes, there is something like this. This is great. So I made a kind of it was marketing, not the product, to some extent, marketing me.
Okay, hold on. That's a key point there. So we've got, just to recap here, we've got this amazing product with one potential customer, and it's a government who's never done technology in the past, almost 100 years. But because of your relationship with the VC firms, they entertained a meeting. Does that?
Yeah. The meeting was because they looked at the deck. When they looked at the deck, they were thrilled. They want to know because it's a revolutionary technology. So,
but the point here, I want to keep this point. Most people don't understand this. Most entrepreneurs, most people with a vision, focus on their vision. They focus on what they can do, and they're ignored because they don't have the connections, the network, the people in place that you've established over the years where, oh yeah, it's Mohan coming in. Yeah, the guy's invented a few things in his life. He's kind of successful. So I think it's important for people to understand that if you're not that guy, if you're not a Mohan, if you don't have a network of people that know you at Sequoia and whatnot, then you better find someone who has, because otherwise you might not get a meeting. And if you do, you might be discarded or ignored or rebuffed rather quickly. I'm just making that point.
100%.
Okay.
In fact, the money I got, I did get. I'll tell you how.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in a minute. We gotta get to the how you did
That is
that.
because of my contact. It's
Got it.
nothing but, it's not people look at just the product and have confidence. I think it is you. It's the team. The people are the real reason you get to move forward. I mean, product is important. I mean, it is obviously that without which you can't do. But the individual, I'll get to that before actually that meeting. This is important. I'll tell you how I did raise 6 million, and it's a very interesting set of events, and it did happen.
You had the patent when you first had the idea going to USPS with this thing. Did you see where they are today back then in the 90s?